To begin this session, picture with me, if you will, an alien. He gains fuel and energy from osmosis when he lands on a unique something that resembles a refrigerator. This refrigerator feeds him automatically. He never has to ask for food. The alien then takes a trip to visit planet Earth, and he lands in a quaint, small town. Suddenly, he becomes hungry. His eyes droop. His stomach aches. He finds an Earth refrigerator, but it doesn't automatically feed him like the one at home. A friendly Earthling sees the weak alien and points to Jack's diner. The alien goes to Jack's, and after watching the activity for a moment, he uses hand signals to order food. He manages to eat a cheeseburger and fries, but he doesn't understand when the waitress hands him a bill. She keeps insisting on getting paid, but the alien doesn't understand her at all. Well, now some men in uniforms enter, and they take the alien away to a small room with bars on it. The alien is more than a little puzzled.
Poor little alien. It would be more than a little puzzling to find yourself transported to a place with different rules, with rules that you didn't understand, but everyone else did. Well, people raised in families where God's ways of boundaries are not practiced have experiences similar to that of the alien. They find themselves transported into adult life where spiritual principles that have never been explained to them govern their relationships and well-being. They are hurt, they're angry, they may end up in jail, but they never know the principles that could have helped them operate in accord with reality instead of against reality. Well, thankfully, the reality God has established is an orderly one based on knowable laws and principles. Spiritual realities are as real as gravity, and we need to know these principles God has woven into life and operate according to them. Right now, we'll look at two of these laws. Law number 1 is the law of sowing and reaping. Now, this law of cause and effect is a basic law of life. When God tells us in Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, that we will reap what we sow, He's not punishing us. He's telling us how things really are. Sometimes, however, people don't reap what they sow because someone else steps in and reaps the consequences for them. People who have no boundaries often do this kind of interrupting. They step in and rescue people, irresponsible people. Now, we call a person who continually rescues or enables another person to be irresponsible codependent. These sowers don't learn the lesson they could have learned. Law number 2 is the law of responsibility. Now, many times when people hear talk on boundaries and taking responsibility for their own lives, they say, that's so self-centered. We should love one another and deny ourselves. Well, despite the wording, that view is unbiblical. The law of responsibility includes loving others. The commandment to love is the entire law for Christians. Look at Galatians chapter 5, verses 13 and 14. Jesus calls it my commandment. Love each other as I have loved you. And that's out of John chapter 15, verse 12. Anytime you are not loving others, you are not taking full responsibility for yourself. In fact, you've disowned your own heart. We are to love one another, not be one another. I can't grow for you, and you can't grow for me. But the biblical mandate for our own personal growth is to continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it's God who works in you to will and to act according to His good purpose. Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 and 13. You are responsible for yourself. I am responsible for myself. And we are both responsible to give to needs and put limits on sin. And boundaries help us to do just that.
Listen to the words of the Apostle Paul in Romans 7. I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. For what I do is not the good I want to do. No, the evil I do not want to do. This I keep on doing, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within my members. This is powerlessness. And we human beings are powerless over our addictions, our unhealthy patterns, and our sinful ways. Though you do not have the power in and of yourself to overcome your sinful patterns, you do have the power to do some things that will bring fruits of victory later. Law number 3 identifies these powers. First, you have the power to agree with the truth about your problems. This is confession. Second, you have the power to submit your inability to God and turn your life over to Him, the doctor who can do what you are unable to do, bring about change. Third, you have the power to ask God and others to reveal more and more about what is within your boundaries. Fourth, you have the power to turn from the evil that you find within you. This is called repentance. 5, you have the power to humble yourself and ask God and others to help you with your developmental injuries and your leftover childhood needs. 6, you have the power to seek out those whom you have injured and make amends. 7, you have the power to forgive those who have hurt you. Besides clarifying what you do have power over, boundaries help define what you do not have power over, everything outside of them. You can work on submitting yourself to the process of clarifying your boundaries and on working with God to change you. You cannot change anything else, not the weather, not the past, not the economy, and especially not other people. I encourage you to make the serenity prayer your own. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You need wisdom to know what is you and what is not you. Pray for the wisdom to know the difference between what you have the power to change and what you do not. Henry?
One word comes up again and again when people describe their problems with boundaries, the word they. But they won't accept me if I say no. But they will get angry if I set limits. But they won't speak to me for a week if I tell them how I really feel. The truth is that they might get mad or withdraw their love. But we have to grant them that freedom and that right. We have to let others have their reactions. This is where law number 4 comes in, the law of respect. We all want to be able to set limits, but the bad news is that we have to respect other people's limits if we want them to respect ours. We need to respect their choices of how to react to our boundaries, just as Jesus respected the rich young ruler's choice to reject his boundary in confrontation. Look at Matthew 19, 16 through 29. Put simply, we need to respect the boundaries of others in order to earn respect for our own. We need to treat their boundaries the way we want them to treat ours. It's the golden rule of Matthew 7:12, where Jesus said, "So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you." We need to respect the boundaries of others. We need to love the boundaries of others in order to command respect for our own. We need to treat their boundaries the way we want them to treat ours. If we're walking in the Spirit, we give people the freedom to make their own choices. 2 Corinthians 3:17. When we accept other people's freedom, including their freedom to say no, we don't get angry or feel guilty or withdraw our love when they set boundaries with us. When we accept others' freedom, we are also free. And that brings us to law number 5, the law of motivation. The law of motivation says this: freedom first, service second. In Matthew 20:26, Jesus calls us to serve. And He modeled a life of service when He walked this earth. But many people serve because they fear that they will lose love or that people will be angry with them if they don't serve. Other false motives for serving are attempting to avoid loneliness, thinking that to love means always to say yes, thinking that good people always say yes, trying to overcome the guilt inside and feel good about themselves, paying back all that they have received, trying to gain people's approval, especially people who represent their parents whose approval was withheld, and over-identifying with the other's loss and the feeling of sadness that they would cause. If people serve to get free of their fear that they will lose love, or the fear that people will be angry with them, or other false motives, they are doomed to failure. If people serve freely out of gratitude, an overflowing heart, and love for others, they realize that it is truly more blessed to give than to receive. The law of motivation calls us to give bountifully and freely out of a heart of gratitude rather than a heart of fear. Freedom first, service second. That is how life works best. The good news here is that you don't have to step into freedom on your own. Let God work on your fears, resolve them, and create some healthy boundaries to guard the freedom that you were called to.